because like when you think about like what is pain, we think as humans that pain avoidance is generally the direction that we want to head. Like, pain is a teacher, right? All this stuff that you're going to go through that's going to be hard in your life, that's going to be difficult in your life, emotionally, financially, physically, are going to be the best things that ever happened to you. All right, pursuit of balance. What is up, everybody? We're going to talk about, I don't know what I'm going to title this actually. Pain is your best teacher, the comfort crisis, pain is a tool, pain is a symptom, things like that. But probably be like pain is a teacher, something like that. I've had this one in my notes for a long time, and I feel like there's some things that I write down when I'm doing podcasts, like ideas, or basically in my notes app, I'll just like jot down. I'm like, okay, that's a good Instagram post, or that's a good podcast idea. Sometimes I write down podcast idea and I'm like, is this long enough, or is this going to be like a minute of me talking, right? And so I've kind of had this one for a while where I was like, I don't know if I will be able to kind of expand too much on it. So I'm going to kind of combine, this comfort crisis aspect and pain management and, a little bit of a follow-up from last week's episode. Last week's episode, I was talking about GLPs, right? And this was a little bit of, when I was planning 2 episodes at a time, just so you guys know. And when I was planning it, I was like, this is kind of a good follow-up, I think, from that previous one. Because like when you think about like what is pain, right? Like pain is a signal to the body, and it was funny when I was doing all these like show prep notes and doing my research as I always do. There's this, I'm going to forget the name. I want to call it CIPA, C-I-P-A. It's like a genetic disorder where people don't feel pain. I just learned this. And it's like a genetic disorder that some people are born with where they don't feel pain at all, right? And what they were saying is like, in relationship to this kind of subject that I wanted to talk about on the podcast was like that this is actually detrimental to people, right? Like we would look at this as like a superpower of like, oh, I'm Wolverine. I don't feel pain. I heal, whatever it might be. It doesn't affect healing. That would be a good thing, like to not feel pain, right? We think as humans that pain avoidance is generally the direction that we want to head. And it was basically talking about how like people like bite their tongue off, or like, how injuries become more detrimental long-term because they actually don't even feel pain or know it's a problem. And I was like, that's kind of an interesting opening hook maybe to use for people, is like, at the end of the day, it's like, pain is a teacher, right? And Paul Chek, guy I really look up to in the health space. He has like Chek Institute. He's an OG, like just he's kind of jacked looking bald dude, very, very holistic, very, very spiritual in that kind of that realm and thought process, which I've always been kind of attracted to. And he always says pain is a teacher. And it's like a chapter that he has in one of his books. Pain is your teacher. Pain is your best teacher. And pain comes in so many different forms in life, right? Like we obviously think about the initial thing of physical pain, right? Like, oh, my lower back hurts. That's pain, right? But then there's emotional pain from losing a job or a relationship loss or a family loss or things like that. Then there's mental pain of defeats. Like I remember the first time my crying in sports, losing a lacrosse tournament in Florida, and I was like shaking everyone's hand, teary. I luckily had a visor on, but I was like, fuck, you get mental pain. There's spiritual pain from disconnect. There's all these different, like when I think about all the ALs, the physical, the mental, the social, the sexual, all these things. And a lot of times, like I said, I think most of us, we try to go through life with the avoidance of pain, right? With the idea of comfort. And if you've never read the book Comfort Crisis, I'm totally blanking on what the author's name is, but the title's there. Comfort Crisis. I would probably say top 5, top 10 book for me. I love the book. And it really just talks about how we have developed over time more comfort for humans, right? Like instead of, it's being hot outside, we go inside with our AC, right? Like, or we wear clothes outside when it's cold, or, all these comforts that we created of phone and technology and social media instead of going out and socializing in real life, right? Or DoorDashing food instead of going to the grocery store and picking it up myself, right? Or DoorDashing groceries instead of going to the grocery. Like there's all these things that have created conveniences and comfort for us. And I briefly touched on this last week. I don't think the avoidance of convenience is the goal, right? Because I think like convenience and becoming efficient in certain areas of life, I think is important, right? Like it doesn't matter if it's delegation with life and work and tasks there, or if it's just like trying to optimize by saving time. Because for me, it's like, hey, if I can optimize the ability for me to save time by not driving to go get food, where I can stay here and I can work a little bit longer, get a little bit more of a workout done. It's like, for me, I'm like, that's a strong ROI, right? So I understand the philosophy and the thought process behind that. But what I really want to talk about today is like how what pain is really meant to teach us, right? So I'm going to start with the physical realm because I think this is obviously the easiest thing for us to connect as humans. That physical pain is generally, and I say generally 90+% of the time, always going to be a symptom of something else, right? Because without pain, we do not have the ability to change path or change our thought process or change our strategy on how we're going about our training, our life, whatever it might be. I've had and still have to this day lower back issues that I've had from the mix of a car crash and rolling a car, a CrossFit injury in the middle of a thing doing deadlifts for time. And I've kind of just always on and off have dealt with it since then. I've had periods of it being really good, and I've had periods of being really bad. I've had periods being like, right, it's just kind of there. Like for me lately, it's like I would say all this year, knock on wood, it's been like a 3 out of 10. It's not debilitating. I'm able to put my socks on in the morning without having to feel like I need to lay down. But there's moments and seasons where I have that I'm like, fuck, this is like just demoralizing mentally. But it's a teacher, right? And I always try to come back to this framework for everything that like the reason why my back hurts, and I try to think about this in kind of two buckets. Why is my back hurting so much in these seasons? And why does my back feel so good during these seasons? Sometimes it's just like, oh, like maybe I'm sleeping better, I'm better recovery, or I'm training less, or maybe I'm training a little bit smarter, or maybe I'm doing a little bit more mobility, maybe I'm eating less sugar and drinking a little bit less alcohol, so my body's a little less inflamed. Maybe I'm whatever. There's a million things that can fall into that conversation. I had that with my right knee a little bit. I sprained my ankle a lot in sports. I've had a left shoulder injury I had a shoulder separation in a lacrosse game one time. So I had these like little things that I think anybody that's been active enough or have had their fair share of injuries, like you're going to deal with it. But I don't look at pain as something that I ignore. I understand that pain is the symptom of something else, right? Like always my biggest strategy with what I do professionally inside the gym as a coach and trainer is trying to come back to the root cause. Like what is the cause of this, right? Because a lot of times people will look at pain as the cause, right? And the reality of it is like if your lower back hurts, doesn't mean the lower back is the problem. Doesn't mean it's not. Like I want to be clear on that. Like it could be too. Like in the physical therapy world and kind of like the corrective exercise kind of world, we always said that like we call this the neighbor rule. Like if you came to me with right knee injury, I would look at your ankles and hips. And if those joints don't function well or the muscles around that joint, that's what we're going to be attacking, right? Because the knee is generally the compensation for something else, right? And not just the knee, but anything. So when you think about pain in the physical realm, it's like that is meant to teach us that there is a compensation that's being made that is causing pain. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to be things like when I rolled my car, for example, and I was 18. Well, I don't know if anybody knows the story, so maybe I'll share. I was 18, 19 years old. I was leaving my whopping 2 months of community college and I was driving to work. I'm on 101, like Gilroy, San Martin area. Traffic comes to a really fast stop because Caltrain was doing some work. So I stop and like I had this old beater car. And I was like, I don't know if this thing's going to break in time. So I kind of moved my car slightly to the left just in case my car didn't stop in time. So like traffic came to a fast stop. The guy behind me in a big Silverado SUV was clearly on his phone or just not paying attention, ran through me, flipped my car over to the left over the median, flipped the car over in front of me to the right, and then hit the other two cars and kind of just jam them together. And I want to bring this story up too, because I think there's an aspect of, and I'll touch on this with a lot of different things, that pain is a teacher also in a good way. Like when you think about people that deal with PTSD, and it was funny when I was looking at people that have gone through traumatic experiences in their life, there's a couple things in my life that have just been, I wouldn't say traumatic in a bad way. I don't want to make it sound like it's a like cry for me story, but like I lost my best friend around kind of actually the same year as my car crash, to suicide. And it was something I felt like at that age, and still, I still kind of look back at it. I was like, I feel like I could have done something, right? Because it was like a situation that I was like, not really fully involved with, but I feel like I was like, indirectly connected to it. So I always said there was weight on me always, and still to this day that I was like, I feel like I could have done something to prevent that from happening. And it kind of makes me a little emotional just talking about it. But I've always sat with that like there's going to be things in life that are going to teach you, right? And there's going to be things that are in life that are going to give you evidence and kind of information and emotions on you can take this route and keep going down this path and make it worse. Or you can take that information, take the emotion, take the experience, take the thing that just happened, and you can course correct a little bit, right? Like, I don't want to. So for me, like when I lost my buddy Gage, and then like my Uncle Bob was, a big part of our life as kids, and we lost Uncle Bob at a pretty young age. And I was always like, you know what? Like prioritizing health and prioritizing time with people and prioritizing being present in my experiences with my friends, my wife, my future kids, my coworkers, my clients are super, super important things for me. And I don't know if I would have made them as important to me if I didn't go through those experiences in life. If I didn't go through those quote unquote painful moments emotionally, I don't know if it would have been as important to me now, right? But it's also the framing of how I digested the information that I think allowed me to course correct for that, right? Because there's plenty of people that I know that keep digging a hole or keep going to rock bottom and they don't learn, they don't course correct. So I bring up that story in a weird way because I was like thinking about this with actual like this. There's sometimes that people that have pain because the actual cause is from something that caused pain to a certain area. And I took a strong tangent on a subject that I was going to touch on later, but whatever. So I think about that when you think about the physical realm, that like there's information that your body will always give you. So if you're someone that is a runner and you're always dealing with knee pain or you're always dealing with back pain, be aware enough through the pain to figure out when and where it's happening, right? Because are you dealing with pain on all your runs or is it just your short runs? Or are you dealing it only on the long runs? Or are you dealing it only when you're on track? Or are you dealing with it only when you run with certain shoes? Or you deal with it only when you don't do your warm-ups or don't do your cool downs? Like the more that we can extrapolate data from the actual experience that caused pain, the more that we can have data to move forward on actually how to change that or prevent that from happening in the future, which is clearly the most important thing. So like I said, just to kind of touch on the strength and conditioning and fitness part of it too, is like your body dealing with pain. The biggest mistake that I see people make, and I made this mistake for a while too, actually, like when I hurt my back deadlifting, I was like, deadlifts are bad for you. And I still put deadlifts as a low ROI item for me. Like the reason why I don't deadlift as much is I don't see a lot of ROI for what I would like for my fitness level, right? So for me, it's like I care about looking a certain way. So muscle development is important for me. And like deadlifts are great, but are there exercises that I can do that are lower risk that maybe can still give me the same return on the benefit I'm looking, right? From performance, like I always forget this guy's name. It's not going to help describe him because they all look the same way, powerlifters, but like big guy with a big beard. He talks about this on a Joe Rogan podcast. He goes, honestly, like he's a competitive powerlifter, very high level. He goes, I think unless you're competing in powerlifting, there's no point to deadlifting. Context to this item. I program deadlifts and functional lifestyles a lot, right? And I realize because two things. Number one, I do see it as a good exercise. If structured properly on how the reps and the sets and the volume are, if we can kind of mitigate that, or also the regressions of setup, right? So going frog or sumo or lifting the floor. And I also just see the engagement from clients. When it's a deadlift day, people love to deadlift. Everyone loves to lift heavy things. I get that. But I also, the third one, kind of the bonus one, is like there is no such thing as a bad movement. There's just weak positions and weak tissues and weak things like that. So weakness could be the thing that was causing pain. Maybe I wasn't strong enough. Like my right glute is not as strong as my left glute. And that is because of just the mobility and posture that my body has from doing a lot of rotation sports. And just when I get into bilateral symmetrical movements, I don't feel as good. So like my squatting doesn't feel the greatest. My deadlifting doesn't feel the greatest. And unless I fix it, I'm going to just keep running into pain. And my brain really operates on a lot of areas of life of risk management of like what is, things that are high risk, high reward are not something I'm generally like super attracted to. If it's high risk, low reward, I completely avoid it. If it's mid to low risk and kind of mid to high reward, I'm like, fuck it, let's go for it. Let's try it. If it's low risk and low reward or low risk and mid reward, I'm like, let's go. So I think just like how you approach everything on the kind of the physical side is a huge piece, right? So when it comes to the pain management side, understand that there's elements of workouts too. And this is going to kind of tie us into this mental resilience side. I have always been a advocate that exercise for me has almost been more mental than it has been physical, right? And to a degree, mental, emotional kind of being in the same part of this conversation. The reason why I love sauna outside of just the longevity and the health benefits is I love challenging things, right? So when I get into a 200-degree sauna, in 10 minutes and 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I'm like borderline getting lightheaded. I don't want to keep going. I'm like, go another 5 minutes, or the cold plunge, right? There's a lot of information getting debunked on cold plunging not being the highest ROI item, right? So if people are doing cold plunging for health benefits, I will be the reminder for you that I don't put cold plunge at an S tier, an A tier, or B tier. It's pretty fucking low. Now, from a mental resilience standpoint, almost an S or an A. It's still one of almost borderline the hardest things that I do. I wouldn't say it's not definitely not the hardest, but it's up there, right? Like getting in 40-degree water and then trying to calm yourself down. That is training the resilience of the mental, right? It is painful in the moments being in cold fucking water. So I do it more for the resilience side of the mental side of it. There's some health benefits, but definitely like post workout, it's gonna you're not wasting a workout, but you're basically like blunting the inflammation process that happens naturally. So I use things like that. Why I love endurance. I don't know if I would use the word love. Let's recorrect that. Why I love the results from endurance training. That's a better way to say it, because I don't really love endurance training in the moment. It's like, it doesn't matter if I'm doing conditioning with class and workouts at the gym, or if I'm going on runs or bike rides. If I'm doing something that's super intense, you're getting into zone 4 and zone 5 work, like boxing too. Like I love boxing out of all things. So shout out Coach Billy. Like it's my favorite thing right now, because it feels like there's a part of me that's competitive with it, obviously, but there's also a part of me that's like, oh, there's skill to it. There's an aspect of violence to it, which I love, and I just feel like I get energy out in a very different way. But there's times where he's like, all right, keep going. And I'm like, dude, like, fuck you. I do not have any fucking energy to keep going here. But I love the way I feel. I've never like came back from a run, a bike, a swim, a hike, conditioning workout, boxing workout, a sporting event, and ever been like, I should have never done that. I always feel phenomenal. I feel better on the cardio side of training post-workout than I do in strength training personally. During strength training, unless it's like super, super high volume or super, super heavy day, there's moments of that of like, oh, I don't want to do 10 reps in squats right now, or oh, I don't want to do like a 2 rep or a 3 rep deadlift right now, heavy. Like there's parts of that can feel somewhat intimidating to people, but this is why I think training is such a powerful tool for us, because for the brain, it is painful to work out. It is painful to go run hard and fast. It is painful to sit in a cold plunge, right? But those are things that we need to be able to sit with that, right? We want to sit with pain and understand that, like, I always have this saying, and this is actually, this is a funny story. This was in Healdsburg probably 2-3 years ago. And it was with brother-in-law, sister-in-law, my wife, a couple of their friends and neighbors there. We all did some mushrooms in their house, living room. And I was like, yeah, you gotta invite it. Don't fight it. I don't know where the saying came from. I don't know if it was just the psychedelic brain of me. I was like, oh yeah, you gotta invite it. Don't fight it. And it like kind of always just like stuck being a saying. And I like started saying it all the time. And I was like, I love that. It's a good motto for life. It's like, invite it, don't fight it. Right? Meaning in the aspect of life, a lot of times we are trying to, instead of going with the flow, right? Like when I give you guys that weird nature episode, when I say weird, maybe weird to some, but I love that stuff. Like we got to flow like a river, right? We don't want to force. We don't want to go upstream. We don't want to restrict things. And a lot of times I think pain avoidance is this idea of swimming upstream. Like we're actually indirectly making our life harder by avoiding the pain and avoiding the work. All the stuff that you're going to go through that's going to be hard in your life, that's going to be difficult in your life, emotionally, financially, physically, are going to be the best things that ever happened to you. Like, and just let that sit with you. Like, understand that the work that you are going to go through, that is going to feel difficult, that's going to make you want to quit, that's going to get you to your wits' end, and it's going to feel like, okay, I am heartbroken, I am financially fucked, like all these things that just get you to your breaking point. Every experience in my life have always been the best turning points that I've had. And trust me, it's not something I'm like in the moment, like, yeah, like this is going to be the best thing. It's like sometimes I'm like, well, this fucking sucks. Or you're broken down, you're emotionally distraught or financially weak or physically just broken down. Like in the moment, it's hard. But if you looked at every hard moment that you've had in your life and you looked back, another line I like to use is, did you die? And the answer is no. Like, of course, we survived every hard thing in our life so far, or at least if you're listening to this. So like, these are all things that are just like, let that be reassurance, right? That is the insurance that like those hard things you will survive. And what doesn't break you, right? Or what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, whatever that famous saying is. So like there's a lot of truth in all aspects of pain management there. So that's why, coming back to the training side, like I love it for the ability for pain management, because I think it's important for us to have high pain tolerance, right? Like the goal, when you avoid pain, think about it this way. I'm not someone that's big on medication. Like I don't really take medication. I'm pretty, it's funny because I'm not like anti-medication or, anti-flu shot or anti-COVID or any of that stuff. I'm just too lazy to go to a fucking doctor to do it. But I'm also like, when I'm at home and I have a headache or things like that, I don't go first to it. Like my wife's even way stronger than I am in that. Like she'll just rock and roll, just unmedicated with things, just like, it's fine. I don't need to take any Tylenol, things like that. So we're pretty low dose, micro dose when it comes to those things. If you are always reliant on taking an ibuprofen every time you have back pain or an achy joint or you're sore or my head hurts a little bit, you are creating a dependence on an artificial synthetic version of pain management, right? You're not going through the process. So what do you think that does to your pain tolerance? It lowers it, right? What do you think that does to your immune function? Lowers it, right? So all these people that are taking things to reduce pain or taking things to avoid the symptom of an effect, long-term effect, I don't think I'll ever look at that as a benefit for people, right? I think there's degrees of it. Like if I go and I break my arm, I'm going to go take some fucking medication. Like if I have a gnarly headache or I can't sleep, yeah, I might take some melatonin or some, as my wife knows, I love that NyQuil stuff at night sometimes when I can't sleep if I'm really, really sick, but like I very rarely get sick too. So you're creating these dependence on avoidance, right? So I think pain avoidance is one of the biggest mistakes that all humans make in all areas of their life because another one that I talk about with stress management. One of the biggest things that I've dealt with in my career, a little bit of relationship, but I think I do it more so in my career, is like avoiding hard conversations. I'm sorry. That makes everything so much harder because now I'm stressed out about this conversation that I never had, right? Versus like, I should just suck it up, swallow the pill. Let me have this conversation with this person, even though I'm super uncomfortable, even though this whole situation makes me feel weird, I need to address it now. Every single time I've had that conversation, I've been like, thank God I had that conversation. Thank God I talked to my boss. Thank God I talked to my wife. Thank God I talked to my friends. Thank God I just voiced my opinion on how I felt. And then that's another thing. It's like you trying to avoid pain in the long term is actually making you suffer more, right? And the goal, suffering and pain are not like parallel. Like you can avoid a lot of suffering in life, self-inflicted, and still have a lot of pain, right? You can avoid pain and still have a lot of suffering in your life, right? So those things, like I said, I don't look at them as necessarily parallels in life, that if I reduce pain, I reduce suffering. If I reduce suffering, I reduce pain. There's just aspects that I think kind of make things a little bit different. Investing, I always think about this on the financial side. Like I'm, been going through that for, I would say, quite some time now, of like me trying to take this next step of like, okay, the real estate stuff and investing. What strategy am I going? Where am I going direction wise? And it's super uncomfortable. Like the idea of like giving a bank or somebody, a business, $200,000, $500,000 or whatever amount of money, depending on whatever someone's situation is. It's like, it's a hard pill to swallow. Cause I'm like, I love security, right? There's parts of me that I love security, but there's also parts of me in my brain that like loves adrenaline and like, let's fuck around and find out. But financially, I am somebody that has like my parents' genes where, as they would say, they're not cheap, they're frugal. They were very smart with their money. So I have a lot of that, even though I'm definitely way more of my mom, literally last week, she was like, she calls ChatGPT Gigi. She was like, I was talking to Gigi about how can I spend money like my son? He'll go buy cars and he'll go buy the nice place or get the nice hotels, the vacation. I was like, I don't know if that's a skill that AI will teach you, Mom, but whatever, more power for trying. But yeah, like coming back to that without leaving on another tangent as I always do, it's like, hey, there's a lot of things in the financial stuff with business when I think about growth. Like anytime, like when I open up the gym, I'm like, ooh, I'm giving so much of my savings away, giving so much of my capital away. When I first started the gym, it's always an interesting thing. And I feel like I've told the story a handful of times that like, I wasn't scared with location one for some reason because like I was just so naive. I had no idea what could go wrong. For me, I'm like, all right, business is great. This is where you're going to make all this money. I'll be driving a Lamborghini after next year. I'm going to give all my whopping $50,000 of savings that I have built up to go open up this gym. And I'm going to go borrow other people's money. And I'm going to go borrow the bank's money. And yeah, life is good. It worked out. It's great. Like I paid off every investor and I paid off every loan and I have no debt. And it's a fun story to talk about now. But like then I was like, no, I was just fucking naive. Once I did location 2 with Mountain View in 2023. And I felt weird. I was like, why do I feel more concerned now? I'm like, now you actually have built up a decent saving from knowing that this was the next step of what you wanted. You also have done it and you've proven the model to a degree, even though I knew that this was going to be a little bit of more of a handoff because I was letting go of more responsibility. Clearly, once again, fun story to talk about, but like I was nervous, right? And that's kind of like the current season that I'm into with this next step of investing is like, anything that you guys want to do to grow in life, you got to understand that it's going to be very uncomfortable. That pain is a teacher. There's nothing wrong with being nervous, right? Like people always say that. Like I remember during the powerlifting, you're like, oh, I'm so nervous. I get like the butterflies. And I'm like, I have never, ever gone into a sporting event, a competition, a team meeting, and not feel nervous. And people are like, wait, team meeting? I'm like, yeah, I don't like talking in front of people. Like it makes me nervous. I just want to make sure I don't fuck up. I want to make sure that I'm providing as much value as possible. And when I'm sporting, I'm like, I don't want to lose. I just like, I don't want to fuck up. I don't want to be the person to drop the ball or whatever. I always had nervous tummy, right? Like I always had those butterflies. And I always say that that's a good thing, right? And that's something I like, it took me a while to figure that out, but I tell that to people all the time when they bring it to me and my attention. I'm like, that's a good thing. Cause that means you give a shit, right? Like it's like, if you don't give a shit, like you're not going to feel that. Right? Like you're not going to be nervous about something you don't care about. You're always going to be nervous about something you care about. Going on a first date or like all those things. Like you're going to be nervous. That's cool. That means you give a shit. Like that's a good thing. So like don't like invite it, don't fight it, right? Like don't try to like restrict or like, push against that with force of like, oh, this is something I should be avoiding. This is a feeling I shouldn't be having. This is a thought process my brain should not be doing. Your body unconsciously is a great teacher, right? And just like pain is a very involuntary response to the body, it's the same thing. Yeah. So then the kind of the social aspect too, if I'm trying to give you kind of different categories of like where pain can be kind of utilized, is rejection. Right? There is nothing more embarrassing, I think, than getting rejected. I was somebody that never, when I was younger and I was going out and we were all single and it was all the guys going out, it was like I never initiated conversation. I was never proactive about that. I was just happy to be surrounded by very, very talkative people. My buddy Mikey Mac, my buddy Jimmy, my buddy Brandon, Cisco's that in my life now. It's just like, they're yappers. They'll go out there and they'll initiate the conversation and they'll get the party going. So I luckily was surrounded by people that I didn't need to go initiate that because I always found that very uncomfortable for me. I'm like, it's not that I don't have any game. It's just not my style of approach. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of times with the social aspect, people hide behind screens nowadays, right? Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got something to say behind a keyboard. No one's got something to say when it comes man to man, eye to eye, right? It's like, and that's just like the world, unfortunately, that we've kind of grown to build for ourselves is like we're choosing comforts and then making the reality of the real things uncomfortable for us, right? And that's where a lot of this conversation for me is like a lot of the things that we are doing to avoid the work, right? So like last week, me talking about GLPs, maybe to lose weight without doing as much effort on nutrition and exercise stuff, or being able to swipe right or left on an app for dating instead of going out in real life and, going out to wherever people meet each other. I'm a drinker, so I'll go to a bar or a brewery or go to the gym. I don't care what you guys do, but go out and meet people, right? Do those kind of things. Are you going out and intentionally doing things that are hard? Like reading for me is not something that I enjoy reading, but sometimes it requires a little bit of motivating, convincing of like, okay, let's get some reading done today. I want to get better, right? The idea of education, which I talked about a few weeks ago, self-education, it's hard, right? Like it's much like if I could just plug a USB drive into my brain and be like, teach me everything and I have all the knowledge. I was always a wish that I had when I was a kid. I was like, if I can rub the genie lamp, like what would I ask for? And I was always like, the stupid kid response of like, oh, I just want to have unlimited wishes. But I was like, or I want a suitcase of $1 million. I used to always think about that. I would go to bed as a kid and I'd be like, if I wake up and there'd just be a suitcase here of cash in the morning, fucking life will be good. But really the reality of it is like, as I got older, that answer to that wish that I could have would be like, I just wish I knew everything. But the reality of it is like, if I was given everything, this is like the kids that inherit everything or they're given everything. They don't have any agency. They don't have any ownership. They don't see value in the things that they received. Right. And it's like, and it sounds good to just get it and just have it. But the reality is you earning it and you going through those painful climbs, those painful journeys and going through those sleepless nights and going through long nights of building things. It was, I was just telling Chaz and Elliot when I was on a call with the short-term rental conversation, whatever, long story short. And I was asking Claude all these questions, these tax questions and these legal questions and building it out. And Claude goes, hey, just want to be mindful. You own 2 gyms. You're trying to hire people. You're trying to grow a lot of different little avenues inside the gym. You have a wife, you have a kid coming, you have a dog, you have a podcast that you shoot, you have your content, and now you're trying to add a real estate thing. Just be mindful of all the stuff you're taking on. And I was like, oh, thanks, Claude. Thanks for looking out for me because I'll just keep going. But there's also a part of me just to kind of like the other aspect of that is like that climb and that hard part and that process and the thing that most humans naturally will just avoid, and why unfortunately they will never be successful in their life, with their career, with their relationships, with their jobs, with their bodies, with their fitness, their health, is because of the avoidance, right? Like, you want to run towards the pain, right? And your pain tolerance will make it less painful because you've had the experience. You know what a hard run's going to feel like. You know what sleepless nights, weeks, and months are going to do when you're building out a business, right? You know what studying for something late night to get ready for a test tomorrow feels like. It's not necessarily always enjoyable in the moment, but you will forever be grateful for the feeling of the process and the work that you went through to actually execute on, because action solves 99% of stress for people. And the more action we can take in life, the more we can have information and data on how to course correct to make sure that we're taking the right action on the right things. But the habit that I always try to build for everyone with a client when I work with them in the beginning is like, who gives a shit about your goal, right? I don't say this because that's not a good sales technique. It's like, you want people to be excited about their goals. But the reality of it is, and what I mean by that statement is, like, the reality is you need to just focus on taking massive action all the time. Like, until you have the habit of showing up, until you have the discipline of just getting the reps in, all the other stuff is a byproduct of that first, right? So it's like, if you're not showing up, you're not consistent, you're not active, don't have the habit developed, you're not going to lose weight. You're not going to get stronger. You're not going to reduce pain. So those are all things. So just to kind of wrap up this conversation, understand that pain is a great teacher. We do live in a world where the comfort crisis is just continually getting worse. So you have to consciously now make decisions on and choices on making things intentionally a little bit harder every once in a while. And if you can microdose pain, you can microdose work, you can microdose hard times, you build resilience over time, right? Like, a little nutrition thing that I'll leave with you guys too is like, when you're hungry, doesn't mean that you need to eat all the time. Sometimes it's an emotional thing. Sometimes it's a boredom thing. Sometimes it's a environment cueing of being surrounded by food. But that doesn't mean the reality of that you're always hungry. Like, sometimes could be an emotional pain kind of fighting that desire. I know some people can maybe look at that as an eating disorder. I've got kind of responded to on that before in a previous podcast. But at the end of the day, it's a feeling, right? And like, there was an episode that I was going to do and maybe do in the future that like, everything is an emotional, if you can't control your emotions on things. So hunger, to a lot of degrees, can be emotion. There's obviously degrees people under eating context. Spending can be an emotional thing, right? Procrastination on work is an emotional thing. Skipping your workout because you'd rather just take it easy is an emotional thing. And if you can't control those emotions, you will be run by a life that will control you, right? Everything else and everyone else is going to be controlling you because you are the controllable item, because you're victim to your emotions. So pain, I'm not saying it's clearly just an emotional. There's clearly obviously real reasons and tangible things that can cause pain and make actually things hurt. But understand that the majority of pain outside of maybe just the physical realm, to a degree, is emotion, right? Like, everything else that we're talking about is emotional pain. So going through those moments and those parts of the journey is all a part of it. And just learn to understand that that is information. That is a teacher. There is a lesson in every hard part of your life, and every hardship and every painful moment that you go through, that you can learn something. But if you don't take the time to reflect on what you're actually, the lesson behind what you need to learn is, you're going to keep running into the wall and keep running into pain. And these are why the people that get back in the bad relationships all the time. These are the people that keep getting stuck in shitty jobs. These are the people that keep thinking like, I joined a million gyms and nothing works. The reality of it is, you should probably look in the mirror, because if you keep doing something and nothing's changing, you're not course correcting. Right? There's an aspect to staying the course, but there's also a really intelligent thing that, like, you need to take the pain, you need to take the information and say, where is this lesson, right? What is the benefit? What is the optimistic point of view of what's going on here? And I give you kind of that little story that I shared with like losing my buddy Gage and losing my Uncle Bob in a very short time frame and crashing a car and almost dying. I had a lot of reflective items that in the moment I didn't feel were very reflective. And then as I got older, a few years went by, I was like, wow, there is so much power from what I went through then that gave me a reality change. That gave me this ability to be like, fuck it, live for the moment, live for the day, extract as much out of life, as much joy out of life as you possibly can, hang around the right people, do jobs you like to do, because those are the things that make life good. But if I didn't go through the painful moment, I don't know what my current mindset would have been. I don't know what relationship or job or position I would have been in life. Like, it might have been different. So there's just a lot to learn every time you go through that. I shared this story a few weeks ago of like, when I got robbed, I was like, fuck, this is like the end of the world. I got all my cash taken from me, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, well, that's the thing that got me to apply to Equinox and meet my wife and build my clients and take those clients to FL and build the gym. And here I am today, 9.5 years later. So information for all of us to use as always. All right. As always, take care. If you guys found some value, share it, like it, support your boy.